Hello and a warm welcome to Green Spaces here on the feed ZW. My name is Lynette Manzini. Thank you very much for joining us. This program is brought to you every week to discuss all things environment, all things climate change. And today's conversation, we want to talk about the environmental impact of rapid urbanization. There has been, rapid urbanization in the last couple of years where, there has been a high birth rate, there has been rural to urban migration. People are coming into the cities looking for opportunities, services, employment, education. But then the environment is suffering. And in today's program, I am joined by the programs officer from the Combined Harare Residents Association, Mr. Reuben Akili, and he's going to walk us through the implications of this rapid urbanization and maybe what can be done to slow down or to mitigate these impacts. Thank you very much for joining us today.
Thank you so much, Lynn, for this important program.
Thank you very much for joining us. Let's get right into it. As I mentioned, the population is growing in the cities. And, we are here in Harare and, there are almost over 2 million people residing in Harare. And this is imposing pressure, exerting pressure on the resources that we have. You look at traffic, the traffic during peak hour. You look at all the greenhouse gas emissions that are produced there, which are leading to air pollution. Just walk us through the situation, maybe in Harare as we speak, how the rise in population is impacting the environment.
Thank you, Lynn. This is an important conversation, which I think these are the conversations which we need to continue to do each and every time. So when you look at the issues around the environment, around climate change, which are also very, very pertinent, because we are also suffering from the effects of climate change. Hence, there is that need to be more serious in environmental management. I think we have seen over time that the rural to urban migration, or when people come and in cities, and the services, they become inadequate. Or for example, water. I think Harare have been having problems with water, have been having problems with even with the refuse collection. And when they have problems with the refuse collection, we see what's happening. Poor waste management practices. You see, in both formal and informal illegal dumps, across illegal and the illegal dumps across the local authority area. And this is a serious challenge, because when people come into these local authority areas or in cities, they also probably from our perspective, we also anticipate that the local authorities also should also have that mind to say when these cities will grow anyway. But again, when we do not have mechanisms to deal with that, we will have problems like what we are facing at the moment. So you actually see that, as I said, the water, for example, if you go to low density areas in the northern suburbs, mainly the low density areas in the northern suburbs, pressure has been put much on underground water. Mm-hmm. Everyone is turned to underground water. And according to the research which was being done by, I think it was, the one was done by SADC, and a program which was run by Upper Manyama Sub-Catchment Council, and there are some other researches which were done by Richard Owen or Mike Owen from the low density areas there. You actually see that the water table has kind of like drastically gone down. Mm-hmm. And you have seen activities which I would say water mining instead of water abstraction, where commercial companies are now even extracting water from domestic boreholes. They even drill 120, 200 meters, so that, and then it then impacts other people who are living within the. This has been happening in Greendale. This has been happening in areas such as Islands, your Amandara area.
So is this why we've been hearing issues of boreholes drying up in the city?
Exactly, because someone, your next door neighbor there is, I will not say water abstracting, it's water mining. Mm-hmm. Because someone is getting water to sell using a domestic bore, a domestic meaning is for domestic consumption, but they are now using it for what? For commercial what? Consumption. And these are the issues. And when those bores dried and when we put much pressure on the underground water, it becomes very, very challenging, because even underground water has been kind of like, I would say, an alternative to the other water which we use from them, surface water. Especially, it can be able to help during the times of, climate changes. We are speaking areas with times of droughts and etc. But again, you actually see that, there's much pressure on that. And even in the whole local authority area, even in Zimbabwe, everyone, we don't have water, let's drill a borehole. And these boreholes, again, they are also drilled, not again in line with the provisions of the laws. I've been when I was with Upper Manyame Subdivision Council, they were telling us 500-meter stand, that's where we can be able. Below that, we cannot be able to put a borehole. So again, you actually see in high density areas we have boreholes, and we have seen again some of these boreholes being contaminated. Your boreholes in Glenview being contaminated because it's in a high density area. You put boreholes in your airport, you put boreholes in your South Park where people use septic tanks and what do you call them, pit latrines, and these are the environmental issues now which are surrounded by these are the environment impacts which also have implications on the people's health.
Exactly.
And some of the underground water now is now polluted.
And where is city health in all of this? Because they are supposed to ensure that we try to curb some of these diseases. What is their role in all this?
Yeah. So when you look at the issue of water, it's more of like it requires what I may say a multi-sectoral approach. There are many departments which are involved. There's the Department of Planning, which you're talking about, and probably you have got the Department of Water itself. You've got the Department of Environment, which is again in the planning department. You've got the Department of Health, because the Department of Health then do the water testing, water quality. But again, the water quality and testing is done by I think the Department of Water, and the Environment, again stationed at Cleveland House there in town. And even Harare water again, they do those regular water testing to see that, and when they observe something, and then they can be able to relay to the Department of Health, which I think would have ideally would have loved a situation where the Department of Health itself probably conduct such, so that at the end of the day they can be able to detect these things fast. These are I would say not rapid per se, but random, water sampling, so that it can be able to help people. So you actually see that we have been having problems for a long time where these things, they've been run mainly by donors, and sometimes when donors are not available, bores are not tested. Online chlorinators are put to curb that. But again, going to the environmental issues which you're talking about, say the way people come in cities, they put pressure on water, they start to abstract water, they start to contaminate water, underground water. And even when you look at the city at the moment, or your local authority or our local authority, city of Harare, is failing to cope with the sewer reticulation and just the pressure.
But before we go to sewer reticulation, I want you to just maybe expand on the point where you mentioned that contamination of underground water. How exactly is that happening?
Okay, so let me go for an example. People who are living in wetlands, Lynn. A wetland, the water table is very, very near. So Lynn built his house, or her house. And then when you build your pit latrine, and then you defecate, we use that, for defecation, and other, activities. Then, there's seepage, underground, is it? Because my friend there also uses the other a well for water, and water is easily contaminated. I've seen it happening in Caledonia, even in Epworth. I remember when these guys, they were testing, these guys were testing using their own knowledge. You know what they did? They took a lid of diesel, just a lid of diesel. They pour it in a toilet, right? And then they collect water from another well which was near, and the water was smelling diesel. So you can actually, so they were just trying to put across a point to say there
Okay,
is
so the water was sipping from the borehole
from the toilet.
toilet to the
Exactly. So this is dangerous, and to the people. And this was a test which was done by local people. It said, guys, let's try to find out what's the real. Because I remember this was an old man who did this, and then they realized, but no, they might be. There is underground water pollution.
So we continue to see the relationship between the pressure on the environment and how it implicates people's health.
Exactly. And that's always, when you talk of environment, the environment, when it's not managed well, it has serious implications on the health of citizens. And this is challenging. And even when you look at the issue of sewer we are talking about, there are perennial sewer based, and these sewers, they run in wetlands, they run in locations, and these people get water from shallow wells, and this sewer then get in wells, and those other things, and they've got health implications on people. So when you look at the issues around climate change, we then speak to the issues around wetlands to say, when people come from Mureo, people come from whatever way they were coming, and because of issue of food security, people started to plow on wetlands. And remember, wetlands, they have a serious role in terms of carbon. They act as carbon sinks.
Yes.
And they absorb carbon. And these are the very same wetlands which we are probably plowing, land barons grab for housing. And again, when the time now comes when we have heat waves, they cannot be able to play their role in terms of regulating temperature. I remember at some point in time, 2 years ago, we had a serious heat wave. But you realize, if we had our wetlands intact, especially the Monaview and that green belt which stretches to Lake Chwe, you will not even feel the heat, because the wetlands would have played a big role in terms of temperature regulation. And these are some of the issues which a conversation which we need to start to say, what are the benefits of the natural infrastructure, to the residents.
But Mr. Akili, how do you speak to a resident and tell them about the benefits of the natural infrastructure when maybe they are wallowing in poverty? Remember, we're talking about overpopulation, the numbers of people who are coming into the cities, and they are then exploiting the environment, their surroundings, because maybe in a bad way, because maybe they're unemployed. How do you convince someone who doesn't have electricity in their home to stop chopping firewood?
Yeah. Lynn, our greatest challenge even we have is, I remember when we had a conversation with another urban town plan, I said, we believe in Chimbom goods. Okay? So when someone, does something wrong, what we think is arresting, what we think is, put them there. But sometimes what is very, very important is to say, what are the opportunities, do we have for a person who is doing that? It's an opportunity to teach people, Sometimes we always stress on don't. But sometimes we need to say, do it this way, But our don'ts have become too much, to the extent that people, don't vent. Don't. And next time but you said, you know what, this is a good idea what you're doing, but it can be done this way, and this can be able to, and you actually see people they want to comply to some of these ways, but sometimes the way we implement some of these policies, at the end of the day, people become more of like resisting some of these things, and that's a big challenge. But people are willing. I've worked in some areas where in Zwarasekwa, there was a lady, she died though, and she was managing a piece of wetland lane, and people, when they knew that this is a wetland, don't do this. There was no plowing, there were no houses, it was just intact as it was, and people would also be probably benefit from the wetland, you could see, these birds, you would see these small animals, Tortoises. Have you ever seen a tortoise in an urban area?
No.
You see now. People, you could see some of the things we have been dwelling there.
So biodiversity is actually preserved by these wetlands, and it's important for us to preserve them. But let's quickly move on to land degradation and its relationship, to a rapid urban growth.
Yeah. So this is interesting. If you go to most high density suburbs, and you could actually see the impacts of this. The Cleveland catchment area is under siege at the moment. And remember, Cleveland catchment area is a Ramsar site. Okay?
And do you mean the Cleveland Dam?
The whole area.
Okay.
It's a Ramsar site. The Cleveland Dam, and there's another area. It's a Ramsar site. And it was under the Ramsar Convention. I think it's in Iran where these conventions happen. And it's protected by international law. Mm-hmm. But if you go there at the moment, as I'm speaking, there are loads and loads and loads of trucks carrying sand for housing. And the place is just degraded. And the siltation within the dam. These are the issues we are talking about. Mm-hmm. So the siltation will not end there. So Cleveland Dam is silted at the moment because of such activities which are happening upstream there. Which then have implications on what I may say water storage loss, because the dam no longer have, probably if it was 5 liters, now it's 2 liters. Or what we see is water there at the top, but at the bottom is sand, and probably other issues. So what I'm trying to put across is that there's land degradation. Mm-hmm. But where is it coming from? It is coming from those people who want to build houses, isn't it? People are building houses, and there is that demand for that sand. And it's not being mined in a good way, or probably at a place which it's not regulated. In fact, I would say it's not regulated. It's just done. Would have expected areas where people exploit such resources, probably in other areas, where it is designated by law to say this is the area of people you will be able to get sand.
But are they places designated by law, Mr. Akili? Because why I'm asking this question is, council approves for people the local authority approves for people to build in certain areas. Mm-hmm. And they rightfully know that each of these houses that they are approving will require this sand. Mm-hmm. Where do they think that people are getting this sand, Mr. Akili? And what is their role in regulating that?
Yeah, so you actually see it has to do with EMA, Environmental Management Agency. It has to do with the local authority, because it can probably, like the issue of water which I was talking about. Do you know the Upper Manyama Sub-Catchment Council have got 2 areas, I think in Harare or one, in Nyabira. That's where you get water for commercial purposes only. Mm. So you have to drive your truck, that tanker, to Nyabira and go to water and sell to Lynn in Avondale. So those the guys, they don't want to do that, isn't it? Because there are some costs to it. So even to the sand issue which you're talking about, there are some areas. That's the reason why you see people used to get sand from this. There's a quarry which is near Coca-Cola. They would get river sand in other stones and whatever. There are some areas which are designated for that. But again, because those areas will be very, very far away from probably the localities, and these sand poachers, they don't want to incur the cost of going probably a 20-kilometer journey or a 40-kilometer journey to get sand, and then deliver it to another 40-kilometer journey. They just go in the vicinity there, and then they start to do that. So again, it is pushing much pressure on the resources, and at the end of the day, the land is degraded. But again, who then suffers? It is the same season. Remember, we are having hot seasons, where the climate is changing, as you are saying, and then the dam has lost the 20% storage loss, and then when the heat comes, the water evaporates, and that's why the reason why you see even in Harare, towards October, November, the city will be crying, there's no more water in Lake Chiwero, there are no more water in dams. I remember last year they decommissioned the second Harare dam because there was no water, and because the upstream activities in Epworth, which we were talking about previously, have got implications in siltation and other, pollution, etc. in that dam. And then at the end of the day, it is again the ordinary citizen or the very same resident who then suffer.
Who suffers? If we are running out of time, we can quickly move on to air pollution. How does rapid urbanization, the growth of urban areas, the population affect air pollution? What's the quality of our air in urban areas?
When you look at that, Lynn, I think all of us, we know that, as I said to you before, that there are some issues relating to, remember, we need more services. We need services. When someone lives in a house, in these services, energy is another service. And again, when you look at the rapid urbanization, because it's rapid, when it's rapid, the local authorities and even those who are in planning, sometimes they fail to cope with that, a rapid or fast growth. And then to that, there are now people then tend to other alternative sources of energy. And the easiest to everyone is what? Is a fire. People use fire to cook. So when people go and collect wood and firewood, this also have got implications, remember, on carbon emissions, number one. And it's a big challenge because people use fire to cook everywhere. And now we have gas again, which has been used again as an alternative source of energy. But most people, if you look at the areas, if you look at Caledonia, if you go to Caledonia, look in areas like Acturas usually have mountains full of mujanje trees, these machanje echwano and misasa, all those trees. But as you go now, the mountains are just plain. Even if you've gone to Rangamvura in Mutare, there's this mountain which is just opposite the Rangamvura mountain, probably. At some point in time, learning that they would have monkeys and it was just, a mountain full of trees. Right now, water flows from the, and it's dangerous again when water flows, from the top of a hill going down. Go to Warren Park. We have what the hill in Warren Park, one is totally degraded. People are getting gravel in the evening. It's being stolen and all those other things, But what I'm just trying to put across to say, the pressure which is being put on natural resources is too much. Trees are being cut. So people cut trees first and then they go to the sand or gravel, and then at the end of the day, you actually see that we cannot be able to now to mitigate the effects of climate change. Because the purpose why we maintain the natural infrastructure is to be able to mitigate the effects of climate change. The trees, they absorb carbon, as you say. But again, when you don't have such trees, you actually see that these places, when you don't have trees, it's hot, But when you go to areas where you have got trees, because the trees also absorb and whatever.
They have a cooling effect.
They have a cooling effect, and yeah. But again, to the issue of firewood, which we're talking about, and then again, you have got issue of cars. I think this is an issue which requires another day. We've seen people exporting cars from Japan, and probably even from Japan, the cars would have been condemned. So now this car is emitting too much carbon. But again, because of poverty, Lynette Akili export cars at $900 from Japan. And these are the cars which have congested our roads and we begin to emit. And these are some of the challenges we are facing. So I think the underlying issues to the issues of climate change, we need also to start to have a conversation around the effects of poverty on the climate and environment. And this is very, very important. It's an important conversation, especially in among the urban poor, because it's a challenge which require also our local authorities. I was speaking to some of the guys to say our local authorities don't even have disaster risk reduction plans. Number one, they don't even have laws which speaks to the issues around climate mitigation strategies or plans. So when
you said they don't have a plan, but on that note, I'd like to thank you very much, Mr. Akili, for joining us. So there you have it, viewers. That was Mr. Reuben Akili. He's the programs officer with the combined Harare Residents Association, and he was talking to us about the environmental impact on rapid urbanization. We touched on air pollution, land degradation, water pollution, and he continues to stress the point that the rise in population in urban areas is exerting immense pressure on natural resources, and it is up to us, it is up to me and you to ensure that we preserve these resources. Look at your wetlands. They are important. They are a source of water during droughts, and they also help as a carbon sink. Remember, there are a lot of carbon emissions that are causing climate change, and it's important for us to preserve these wetlands. So thank you very much for joining us. Until next time, my name is Lynette Manzini. Goodbye.